and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. The world's most important dialogue of the year, the G7 summit, concluded here in southern Italy. 7 most important and powerful leaders of the world, along with guest nations, attended this summit and attempted to find solutions to the problems that the world faces today, the global challenges, the changes, and a world in disarray. Will the world be able to find the solutions and navigate the diplomatic space is the big question. Apart from the intricate joint communique and outcome documents, there were photo ops and optics at display. But beyond the fanfare here in the Apulia region of southern Italy, were the attempts being made rightly so to find solutions to the intricate problems? Russia-Ukraine war still continues. West Asia continues to remain in flames. And at this point in time, the world needs strong leadership. Is G7 the answer? In this episode of Statecraft, we will be discussing the waning importance of the G7 bloc. This year's G7 communique is breathtakingly comprehensive. It talks about the Russia-Ukraine war, the Israel-Hamas war, the Red Sea, the Indo-Pacific, China, artificial intelligence, Africa, food security, and whatnot. At over 19,000 words, this reads like a manifesto for a major world government. But unfocused wish list cannot be a priority. When everything is a priority, nothing really is.
Sono trascorsi 841 giorni dall'inizio e vi confermo che abbiamo raggiunto l'accordo politico per fornire un sostegno finanziario aggiuntivo all'Ucraina di circa 50 miliardi di dollari entro fine anno, grazie a un meccanismo di prestiti per la cui restituzione potranno essere utilizzati gli extra profitti derivanti dai beni russi immobilizzati nelle nostre giurisdizioni. Non parliamo chiaramente di una confisca di questi beni, ma degli interessi che maturano nel corso del tempo.
On the other hand, the group's authority in global politics has been overshadowed by trouble back home for most of its members. Leaders from Japan, Germany and Canada are facing low public approval. UK's Rishi Sunak and his party is headed to a terrible loss in next month's general elections. In France, Macron has called for a snap parliamentary vote, and in the US, Biden is battling a tight presidential race against Trump. Now, one has to admit that the G7 is one of the most powerful and cohesive economic bloc in the world. It continues to produce all the leading currencies of the world. But the question is, has the G7 been reduced to a fragile club only used to shield Western interests? First, let me run you through some of the outcomes that were decided in this year's G7 summit. Target number 1 was the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, the G7 leaders have managed to pull together a message of unity when it came to addressing the threats they see as undermining Western stability. The leaders have announced that it will draw on frozen Russian assets to make a $50 billion loan to Ukraine to support its efforts in the continuing war with Russia. Ukraine, which is still struggling to repel Russia's invasion, needs the money urgently.
It is a strong signal that we are sending to Ukraine that we will support Ukraine in its fight for freedom for as long as it takes. It is also a strong signal to Putin that Putin cannot outlast us. You should keep in mind that there's a European support of 50 billion euros, there's the American support of $60 billion, and now comes on top a G7 package of $50 billion.
However, this didn't go down well with the Russian president. Vladimir Putin denounced the agreement. He also went on to say that the selfishness and arrogance of the West are pushing the world closer to a dangerous point of no return.
Также, что именно Вашингтон подорвал стратегическую стабильность, заявив об одностороннем выходе из договоров о противоракетной обороне, о ликвидации ракет средней и меньшей дальности.
Moving on, the joint communique also mentions Israel's efforts in Gaza and the Israel-Hamas war. The G7 communique has called for ceasefire efforts in Gaza. Leaders have urged Hamas to accept US President Joe Biden's ceasefire proposal and also called on Israel to de-escalate from a full-scale military offensive. The thorny issue of how to tackle growing global economic challenge from China was also top priority for the G7. In a hindering tone against Beijing, the G7 leaders accused China of enabling Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The group has threatened to further impose sanctions to punish Chinese entities that are believed to be helping Russia circumvent Western embargoes. Now, the host country of Italy invited a large number of guests, including India, Turkey, Brazil, and the United Arab Emirates. Even Pope Francis made an appearance.
L'intelligenza artificiale è tuttavia spesso percepito come ambivalente. Da un lato entusiasma per le possibilità che offre, dall'altro genera timore per le conseguenze che lascia presagire. Siano strumenti per la costruzione del bene e di un domani migliore, devono essere sempre.
It seems like the group is aware that they cannot alone confront the challenges posed by Russia and China or solve the world problems by just talking to each other. Many experts believe that some of these countries are only watching and rather doing nothing at all. The deepened divisions are also because of the current Israel-Hamas war, where the Western nation now stands exposed with its double standards when it comes to its unwavering support of Ukraine as compared to its much softer stance when it comes to Israel's conduct in Gaza. So, is the G7 a product of a bygone era? The tendency of the G7 leaders of not delivering on their promises is a concern. Be it global vaccination drive during COVID-19, where many developed countries have been accused of hoarding COVID vaccines, or issues regarding climate change. The group has failed to provide a framework for their far-fetched targets. Another big drawback of the group is that G7 is investing more in war rather than lasting peace. It's safe to say that this political club has become an institution in search of a concrete role. Now, in the midst of positive hypes and negative hopes, let's look at India's presence at the G7. On the first foreign trip of his third term, Prime Minister Modi interacted with his Western counterparts, including Rishi Sunak, Joe Biden, and Justin Trudeau. During his time at the event, Prime Minister Modi addressed the outreach session focused on issues related to artificial intelligence, energy, Africa, and the Mediterranean. PM Modi not only engaged in intense discussions about the global south and the world order, but also a bunch of warm embraces with leaders and a selfie video with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni that has gone viral as usual. Now, under Prime Minister Modi, India has been a regular invitee to the G7 meets in the past few years, as has been the case even when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was at the helm of affairs. But you must be curious to know, why do the 7 most wealthiest nations of the world need India? How can India be of help to them? Now, given the increasing economic gravity of New Delhi, the West needs India to confront major policy issues. With the global geopolitical and economic epicenter shifting to the Indo-Pacific, European countries are keen to benefit from the economic opportunities that the region offers. However, the Indo-Pacific has its own challenges, with the belligerent China expanding its strategic and economic footprint. For the Western countries, India has emerged as a major strategic partner to contain China, particularly in the Indian Ocean component of the Indo-Pacific region. Moreover, India is one of the few countries in the world to have cordial ties with both Russia and the West. As the Russia-Ukraine war shows no sign of easing out, India could, through direct or indirect mediation, offer a face-saving option to both the warring sides in the near future. India's approach of balancing ties and having good relations with Russia as also the West could assume great significance should there be an option or a window to negotiate terms of peace between Russia and Ukraine. After the G20 summit in Delhi last year, India is trying to emerge as the leader of the global south. Amid global tensions, India's position as a neutral country is pivotal. In the midst of all the give and take, the conflicts, the wars, the challenges, will the G7 look at expanding? Will it include other countries that are more representative of the world? Or will it continue inviting nations to continue deliberations like they've done in the past? Whatever the case may be, it seems like it's the group of 20, that's the G20, that's assuming more significance given that it is more representative of the world order. Having said that, India will continue to be engaged by the G7 bloc. Why? Because India is part of the solution and not part of the problem. It is imperative to have India in the room to face those challenges and find solutions to the problems. On that note, it is a wrap on this edition of Statecraft. Goodbye and take care.